All right. Welcome to Forward Future Live. Today, Friday, September 26th, 2025. Today, again, I am joined by my co-hosting partner at Forward Future, Nick Wentz. What's up, Nick?
Here we are. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we have some good guests today. So we have three great guests. Mike Maples, founding partner at Floodgate. We'll be getting into his insights about how venture investing has changed in the face of artificial intelligence.
By the way, Matt, Mike, he's a legend, as you know. He's
Yes.
been on the Forbes Midas list, I think, since 2010. Invested in companies like Twitch, Twitter, Lyft, many others. Very
Those little
excited to chat with
companies.
him.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, excited. So then we have Ahmed El Kishki, AI researcher from OpenAI, one of the leads responsible for that perfect 12 out of 12 ICPC score on the one of the hardest coding competitions in the world. So we're going to talk to him about what that was like, what he had to do, and what the team had to do to get that perfect score, and then also more generally coding and what it means for AGI. Then we have Imad Mostak last, founder of Stability AI, now founder of Intelligent Internet. We'll be talking to him about his new book and then also how AI will affect the economy. And he's been thinking a lot about that. So very excited. Nick, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, let's talk about a couple stories that came out this week. Starting with yours truly, Matthew Berman.
Mm.
Thank you, Alex. Little exchange between you and Mr. Elon Musk. Do you want to break this one down for us?
Yeah. Can you scroll down a little bit, Alex? So, scroll up just a little bit. Right there. Yeah. Okay. So Elon said, and this was a throwaway tweet, by the way, from me. So winning was never in the set of possible outcomes from Anthropic, or for Anthropic, I should say. And immediately I remember the email exchange between him and the OpenAI team back in 2018, because I read through them. I think I made a video about it, but he basically said, your chance of succeeding, OpenAI, is nil. It is zero. And so again, throwaway tweet. He said the same thing about OpenAI. And then I wake up in the morning and I have a reply from none other than Elon himself. Do you want to read that one, Nick? Scroll down a little bit.
Oh, down
Alex,
here.
there you go.
Yeah. No, I never said that. I told everyone who asked in the beginning that I thought the probability of OpenAI beating Google was around 1%, infinitely different from 0%. Yeah.
Yeah. So infinitely different from 0%. I actually totally agree with that. 0% and 1%,
Yeah.
they're binary. It's completely different. However, he just happened to say the exact inverse of that in those emails. Now, I know there's a lot of arguments about what exactly he said. Alex, can you scroll up a bit? So let's see. Hit the show more button for me, please. So first, big fan. And yes, this is true. I had to preface it with I am a big fan of Elon in general, because if you criticize or disagree with Elon on his social media platform, you are in for a world of hurt. But I reread his emails with Sam Altman and Greg Brockman, and it really seems like he told them they had no chance. And originally, this is what I was referring to. So January 31st, 2018, Elon told us OpenAI is on a path of certain failure. That is certain. That is 0% success rate relative to Google. Now, scroll down and look at my reply to this one, Alex. There, scroll down
I
a
don't know.
little bit more.
Oh, this one.
There
Yeah.
we go. And this too. So this is directly from the email. Nick scrolling. Yep. Okay. So Elon to Ilya, Greg Brockman, and C. Singh, Sam Altman, and Siobhan Zillis, former mother of, or future mother of his child, I should say. My probability assessment of OpenAI being relevant to Google DeepMind without a dramatic change in execution is 0, not 1%. So I pointed that out. Now, of course, a lot of people are arguing, hey, it came with a caveat. If they do make these changes, it can be greater than 0%. But you know what? I think I was right there.
Yeah, we'll give Matt the win in this one, in this case. You know, this is just some casual X flirting. You know, this coupled with the one-on-one customer support that you received from Elon earlier,
Yeah.
this is inevitably this just leads to an interview and maybe a tour of SpaceX. We shall see.
Yeah. Well, that's the dream. But yeah, earlier in the week, I tweeted out something like, "Hey, we're paying $3,000 for XAI per year, and I can't get somebody to reply to my emails." And then Elon replies, "Hey, what seems to be the problem?" Because that's what the richest person in the world and CEO of the company does. He does customer
Yeah,
support whenever. Uh,
always available.
I thought this was a funny interaction. I think, like, yeah, there are some arguments that what he said is, yes, if you're going to make a major change, then you do have some success. But okay, that's about all on this story. I just was definitely an interesting morning waking up to that.
Indeed. All right, let's go to one more story, and then I believe our first guest is here.
Yep,
Is here,
Mike
so
is
we'll
here.
make this one quick. Um, all right. So Amjad, CEO of Replit, says just learning that North Korea flooded U.S. market with remote IT workers, not to infiltrate or spy, no espionage here, but to make money for North Korea. They use AI filters and AI interview cheating tools to get jobs. It's been so successful, in fact, that they've made millions of
Hundreds
dollars.
of millions of
Hundreds of
dollars.
millions, excuse me.
Yeah, yeah. And then
Pretty incredible.
they couldn't answer simple questions about where they live. Like there's if you go to the point in the video, it's no big deal if you can't find it, but they show a Texas driver's license, and it was like so clearly looking
perform a live
photoshopped.
face swap to match.
And then yeah, couldn't answer like simple questions about Texas. And but I think it's hilarious. So like, and by the way, this is not specific to North Korea. There are tons of people everywhere in the world that are using AI cheating tools for interviews. Uh, right? There was a anyways, there's been a lot of stories. I remember Soham Pratik, if you remember. I don't know if he
Yeah.
was
Oh, yeah.
using AI, but certainly was cheating. And so
Yeah.
yeah,
Is this
interesting.
is this a case of AI being truly the great equalizer?
Possibly. And I think it's hilarious that they're not doing it to like to infiltrate or to spy. It's simply to earn money. And
Right.
you know what? Okay, fine, I guess. I mean, well, maybe not fine. Actually, now that I'm thinking
Yeah,
about that for a
yeah,
second,
yeah, yeah. I do think there
you
is a
know what I
real
meant.
there's a real Trojan horse concern here. I mean, maybe these are contractors, so they have limited access, but yeah, there could be something more nefarious going on, behind the scenes,
Yeah,
or
and this
or
was all
eventually.
based on like a story. It wasn't Amjad like just saying this. There was a story. Maybe scroll down a little bit, Nick. I think that he was like replying. Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, full video
Here
here.
we go. Yeah, this is the full video. And yeah, so maybe we'll drop it in the show notes if you wanted to check it out. But I thought this is a super interesting story. And again, like there are so many people who are cheating with AI tools like Cluely and everything else. And there's like this pattern, kind of this behavior that happens where they'll get asked a question, and they'll say like, okay, let me think about it. And then they'll sit there for an awkwardly long period of time while they literally wait for the AI to generate the response. So, just super interesting, and kind of speaks to the importance of being in person even more. And this is coming from somebody who ran a fully remote company for a while. Now, Nick, you and I are thinking like, hey, we need to be in person, and not because of this, but there's also just something else about being in person.
Yeah, other benefits for sure. I imagine companies are taking immense measures to fix this problem. I think I saw Coinbase's security chief say something like he expects 100% of the Fortune 500 to be affected by this issue. Not necessarily North Korea, but this kind of
Cheating.
cheating. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, with that said, let's bring on Mike Maples.
Yes. All right, Mike Maples, founder of Floodgate. Mike, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you again, Mike.
Yeah, good to see you. So I think the first thing we want to kind of get into with you is you spent your career backing founders early and then at the inflection point as well. What are you looking at now? And put that in the context of the AI wave that we're seeing. What are you most excited about investing into?
Sure. And if you don't mind, I'd also, when we get a chance, I'd like to return to some of your comments about Elon that you just made.
Yeah,
Should we do the AI stuff first?
no,
No,
let's get into Elon
let's do
first.
the
Let's
Elon
go.
stuff.
Let's get
Yeah.
to Elon first. Okay.
What did I get wrong?
I don't think you got something wrong. Let me just try something on for size, though. The wrong thing is to expect Elon to always be right. So Elon has a whole lot of hot takes. And part of the reason that Elon is so successful is that some of his hot takes are really right.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I've come to realize, and this is true in any creative field, it's true in physics, it's true in software entrepreneurship, it's true in big business, it's true in art. In order to be spectacularly right, you have to think differently from the crowd. And so you have to have a hot take on some level. And so it's impossible to always be right with your hot takes. It's the desire to always be right that causes you to be like the average. So it's kind of like stock picking. If you and I buy the index, we'll perform the same. We might perform well if the stock market performs well. But if I buy Nvidia stock, half of the market believes it's overpriced, half of the market believes it's underpriced. I have to risk underperforming the index in order to outperform the index whenever I pick a stock. I think the same is true when you have a contrarian opinion. You can't have the upside of being right with a contrarian opinion without being occasionally wrong with your contrarian opinions. And so, I think that the idea that Elon should always be right is wrong-minded. I think that it's axiomatic he's going to be wrong a lot, and he should be wrong a lot. So we have this tendency in our society to say, oh, well, what you said was wrong, you're inconsistent, whatever. Results are never consistent. And we shouldn't even pretend that they are and shouldn't even impose consistency on it. So that's kind of my opinion. Maybe it's informed by the fact that I'm a startup investor. But
Yeah.
my business is not about being the amount of times I'm right. My business is about what is the magnitude of the upside in the rare event that you are right. And what I don't think about it as batting average. I think of it as expected value.
Yeah, and well said. And okay, if I may be pedantic for a second, Elon actually with that statement was right at the time with huge caveats. They were kind of the vast underdog to Google DeepMind, and then they made the changes that he recommended. I think the point that I was trying to make is he really explicitly said, I never said they had no chance of success. And that's what I was really pointing out. But you're right. I do agree with what you're saying. And
he's not gonna, he's not a normal guy. And so I'd have no expectation of him acting normal, right? Like I was a zero. Of course he'll contradict himself.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned you're an early stage investor. You're looking for the expected value. Mike, tell us what you're looking for now.
Sure. Well, obviously AI is interesting, right? It's hard to miss. But one of the things that I've noticed is that if you look at tech, occasionally you have a sea change. So when I was a kid, the PC came out, Apple computer, and it was the era of mass computation. So, computers had been expensive. They became ubiquitous. And one of the things that's interesting is at the time, everybody was excited about the computer companies, Compaq, Seagate, the hardware that was providing the empowerment and the ubiquitous compute. But what was the important question was what becomes rare and valuable in a world where computing becomes abundant? And that ended up being software. But in the early days of the PC revolution, people didn't think of Microsoft as the important company. They thought of Apple and Seagate and Compaq and IBM as the important companies. So then you fast forward to the internet, and we had the era of mass connectivity. And rather than the transistor becoming free, the packet became free.
Mm.
And the new monopolies were people who created network effect companies that aggregated people and attention and became the systems of record and collected a bunch of data, and had network effects. So it was no longer Moore's law, it was Metcalfe's law. To me, AI is the era of mass cognition, and the inference unit is the unit of abundance. And the interesting question becomes, what becomes valuable in a world where intelligence itself becomes asymptotically free? And if you look at the discussion about AI, that's not the discussion that most people are having. They're having a discussion about the latest model du jour, the latest attempt to leapfrog. How are we going to create more energy to run these data centers? How fast are NVIDIA chips going to get? Is NVIDIA going to have a competitor that makes a better chip or cheaper chip? But all of those remind me of the early days of the PC revolution. All of those are the inputs to the abundance. And like as an investor, what I like to say is, let's assume they'll all succeed. Just like we could assume that microprocessors would make computing free, let's assume that all these guys are going to fight this crazy pitched battle of continuous competitive rivalry to make the inference unit free. What becomes scarce in a world where that's true? Like, that's what I'm kind of interested in, right? Like, what becomes scarce in a world of cognitive abundance?
And what are you thinking? What is at the forefront of your research right now? And it does seem like that's going to happen, right? The cost per token is approaching, not yet, it's still quite expensive, but it is going to, it's approaching zero, or the cost of electricity. And so what do you look for in the market on the infrastructure layer, on the application layer? Is there particular areas that you're excited about now, and what is being underinvested in?
Yeah, so a lot of the way that I've been thinking about it is, people talk about agents, but I like to think in terms of people with high agency. And so a lot of people right now, high agency people, are using ChatGPT to amplify their capabilities. Some people are getting replaced by it, but some people are using it as like an Iron Man suit, right, to force multiply their capabilities. So I'm trying to answer that question at the organizational level. What does it mean to be a high agency VP of sales? And what does it mean as a VP of sales to amplify my capabilities using the AI? How do I become a sovereign VP of sales, or a sovereign CMO? So I think that that's kind of interesting. I was talking to a chief legal officer not long ago, and they were at like a company, like, I'm not going to use the exact company, but let's say a company like Chevron that sells gas and pumps gas. Are they really different from Exxon? Not on the surface, but below the surface, they have a nexus of contracts that's different from Exxon's nexus of contracts. They drill for oil in different jurisdictions than their competitors do. And so I believe that in the future, AI will provide that chief legal officer with a system of intelligence that allows them to figure out what contracts are the most profitable, which ones are the most risky, help me write better contracts in the future, help me expand my circle of competence, help me avoid competing in areas where I don't have an advantage, where the other guy does. And so, like, I think that every executive is going to want a system of intelligence that allows them to be a high agency executive in their field. So that's one thing I'm looking for.
Cool. Makes a lot of sense. I want to go back quickly to these, what you might call inflection points. You've lived through a lot of them, Mike. We talk about .com, mobile, social, cloud, and almost trite at this point to talk about this, but AI just seems so different on its face. It almost feels like there's multiple inflection points just colliding.
All the time.
Exactly, all the time. And so, like, what does that look like? Like, why is that the case? Can you walk us through your POV on why this is just so different?
Yeah. So the way I like to think about it is like, a great startup is kind of like a business heresy that turns out to be true, right? So like, Airbnb says, okay, you can rent an extra room in your house and strangers are going to stay in other people's houses. And at the time, that sounded kind of crazy. You know, people going to get murdered in one of these,
It
right?
still
Like
does when
seems,
you say it like that, to be honest.
yeah, it seemed kind of crazy. Or, you know, are people going to get in a stranger's car and let them give them a ride somewhere? It sounds obvious now, but at the time you're kind of like, I don't even know if that's legal. Turns out it wasn't, but you know, but so, you know, where do these insights come from? You mentioned, Nick, a second ago, there's the inflection. So like, let's just walk through an example. So like with ride sharing, you could have had the idea for ride sharing before the iPhone 4S, but it wouldn't have mattered because you couldn't have implemented it. You had to have GPS locator chips in the phone itself so that riders and drivers could locate each other in real time. And so, but now all of a sudden that's true. What the entrepreneur does is they have a heretical insight. And the heretical insight is, oh, that means you could have a peer-to-peer ride sharing network, because, you know, riders and drivers can find each other in real time, and you could have an entire new supply of rides. And so, at first it sounds kind of crazy, but then it ends up being the right kind of crazy. And so that's kind of, you know, if we go back to AI, the challenge I'm finding is inflections are everywhere. I see a new inflection every week. I see people come in with products where I'm like, I would totally want to use that. That's going to be awesome. But where's the insight? You know, because if everybody is harnessing the same inflection, the opportunity to make money gets arbitraged away. And so it's not enough to just provide an empowering new thing. You have to provide something uniquely empowering that only you can provide. And that's the challenge, I think, with a lot of these AI startups, is that they provide something where the consumer will get all of the surplus, because the empowerment, the profits that could happen because of that empowerment would be competed away with mindless competition and everybody trying to sell the same thing.
Is that the bull case for having very verticalized AI companies, where you have expert knowledge of a specific industry, and then you're leveraging artificial intelligence to offer a product that is incredible?
Yeah, I think that would be a definite bull case for it. So, for example, one company I'm involved with is called Applied Intuition, and they started out creating simulators for autonomous vehicles, and then they started to provide software stacks also for just EVs and software-defined cars in general. Sam Altman can't just do, you know, ChatGPT version 6 and all of a sudden all those capabilities are enabled in cars, right? Like there's a set of things that you have to master and understand to work with a car company like, say, Porsche or General Motors, to instrument their cars to be self-driving, or to, you know, reinvent their software architecture to be a software-defined car rather than cars of the last 100 years with a whole model of how they get built. And so companies like that can do pretty well because they combine the cross-discipline knowledge of deep AI with the vertical knowledge of speaking the language of the industry that they're in, and knowing how to complete the last mile of delivering a system that helps that industry.
Let me, if just one second, like continuing on this point, there have been top researchers at OpenAI that are very bullish on an omni model, a single model that is capable enough to do all of the tasks. And then I start to think about platform risk, and how do you think about platform risk with the possibility of an omni model coming from OpenAI when you're investing into companies and then overnight they're releasing either a new product or the model just becomes so much more capable that it's able to do something that the startup was previously doing?
Yeah, and so I guess I like to invest in companies where they can succeed no matter how good OpenAI's models are. So, you know, like if you're a car company, you have to do over-the-air software updates. You have to integrate your entertainment system with the other architectural elements of the car. And, you know, the average person in Detroit is not very sophisticated yet at software architectures, right? That's not how they tend to show up in the world. And so it becomes much more than just how good is the model. It becomes, how do you change the future architecture of cars around GPUs and AI and software and architected operating system level design principles. Cars aren't made that way today. Cars have a bajillion supply chain partners. And so when Bosch comes up with the new thing that lets it detect rain on the windshield and the wipers start wiping, every car company gets that. And aggregate 1,000 examples of that, that's a new car. That's not how Elon makes cars. And that's not how the Chinese make cars, right? Like the whole first principles design is just fundamentally different. And so you can't solve that with just a model. You have to have an entirely different mindset about what a car even is in the first place. And so companies that help the existing car companies move to that different future are well positioned, regardless of what OpenAI does. And so it kind of goes back to what we were asking about earlier. That would be an example of a vertical application that is fairly sustainable in terms of its ability to create a moat and protect its advantage and its value. Whereas if all it is it's like optimizing legal markups using a GPT wrapper, I'd be a little bit more skeptical of those ideas, for example.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about, from a company perspective, a product perspective, what you're looking at. What separates good and bad investments at this point, defensible from OpenAI developments, et cetera. When it comes to the entrepreneur, what are you looking for? How has the rubric changed in terms of the type of person that you're looking for, who you believe can be successful in this era? I know you talk a lot about contrarian thinking and breaking patterns. How much does that fit into how you assess an entrepreneur's ability to execute an idea or an insight?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things, but I think that there's a couple of high order bits. One we kind of touched on, which is they have a fundamental insight about the future. And usually that insight comes from, I like to say non-consensus to me is different than contrarian, right? So like contrarian, you're still relative to somebody else, so to me, a contrarian is a different type of conformity. To me, non-consensus is you just came to an idea by thinking for yourself, and you saw something that the world didn't see yet. And by the way, the non-consensus ideas happen in all fields. Einstein's general theory of relativity was a non-consensus idea compared to Newton mechanics, right? Picasso's cubism was a non-consensus idea about what art should be. And so what these founders do is they are usually tinkering with the front edge of technologies of the future. All of a sudden they notice something and they build something that usually solves a problem for them that's missing in the future. Mark Andreessen, we did the Mosaic browser, wasn't old enough to even know what a market is. He was just trying to make the internet useful for him. And so he built the thing that was missing that he needed. And then it turned out to be valuable for a lot of people. So that's the first thing that I look for is, do they have an authentic, fundamental insight about the future that's not obvious, that they came by honestly, and that is not obvious to most people? And in fact, some people might even dislike as an idea. It's actually a good thing if most people dislike a startup idea at first, because if too many people like it, it's too similar to what's already known, which means it's probably too consensus. So you want ideas that have a sharpness to them, where most people don't like it, but some people are like, oh my God, I've just seen the light. Where have you been all my life? And then the second part has to do with the founder himself or herself. They have to move people to that different future, right? Like if you're proposing a different future, you're out there by yourself and you're going to stay there by yourself unless you convince other people to move to that different future with you. And so you have to have the persuasion skills to find the early first believers, and you have to have the discipline and focus to not spend time with the people who aren't ready to believe yet, because you're not going to convince them at first. And so, you create these movements where you move people to that different future of your design. And so what does it take for a founder to do that? They have to be persuasive. They have to be disagreeable. They have to be willing to take ridicule. They have to be hyper determined. We were talking about Elon earlier. One of the things I really appreciate about the guy is he never backs down, ever.
That's what I was afraid of.
He just never backs down. And that's part of his power is he picks ideas that are so important to him, so existentially important, that he can't countenance the idea of failure, right? Like, he doesn't think about risk. He thinks we have to go to Mars, period. And anybody who stands between him and going to Mars is an existential threat to his very worldview of who he is and what his life is about. And so he'll never back down. And so, like, part of what I respect about him is he doesn't pick startup ideas where he's like, we'll see what happens. I hope it works out. If it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. He only devotes his time and energy and talents to things that are life-defining to him, that are existential to him. Tesla accelerating, the world's transition to sustainable energy, SpaceX, let's get on Mars. You don't see him saying, hey, I'm just going to do some lean startup and see what happens. Hope for the best. That's not how he rolls.
Mike, do you think this disagreeableness as a personality trait is inherent or can be learned? There's a lot of talk about the best founders are disagreeable as a personality trait. And people who maybe aren't that way read that and say, okay, well, I'm just going to start disagreeing with people because that's what I'm hearing is what works. Is it something that can be learned? Is it like a self-fulfilling prophecy, or is it inherent? You have to be born with it.
I think that people are somewhat born with it, or at least they develop that sort of mental muscle early in life. So, and by the way, to me, disagreeable is not about being boorish or cantankerous or the person at the party that everybody says, oh God, he's here, let's walk the other way. Disagreeable to me just means not in agreement. And so, like I'll give you an example. There's this theoretical physicist I really like, David Deutsch, who wrote an amazing book called The Beginning of Infinity. One time I was talking to him and he said, when I see a problem I can't solve or a contradiction that I can't reconcile, it like triggers the pleasure center in his brain, right? Like, he's excited about that. Like, he's almost regrets it when he solves it. It's kind of like for me, when I work with a startup, I love the adventure of working with the team. And people probably think when the company goes public, I feel like, oh, that's great. I got money. I made money on this thing. And there's some truth to that. Don't get me wrong. But there's always a sense of regret, right? Like, I don't get to work with Todd McKinnon anymore at Okta the way I once did. I don't get to work with, Neil Young at NG Moco the way I once did. And like, the excitement and the tension and the drama and the us against the world, and it's Ocean's 11 and we're going to pick the Bellagio safe. Like, that's what I'm in it for. That's the fun part. The journey of that is the reward. It's not the IPO winnings when it works. I mean, that's great. But, I think that there is an element of that to entrepreneurs where they like the fact that they've come up with this heretical idea, and they like the fact that it's going to be challenging to convince the world that they're right. And it's like they enjoy the process of that level of disagreeableness.
Yeah. Gives them purpose. Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the founder side. We've talked a lot about the startup side. I want to talk for a moment about the VC side. Floodgate helped pioneer the micro VC model. I think a lot is changing because startups can do so much more with so much less, so much fewer resources. How is the calculus for a VC fund changing? Has it changed? Is it going to change? What are you seeing from Floodgate? What are you seeing from the market in general?
Yeah, I think in venture today, there are two main strategies to think about. The first strategy is to raise as much money as you possibly can to get a good enough return. And so you could raise so much money that you just can't make money. People don't want that. But if I'm a sovereign wealth fund and I've got more money than I know what to do with, it's a good investment vehicle for me to invest lots of money in something that does slightly better than the market. And so that's a model, right? And that is the game that they're playing. They're engineered for scale. The other way to do venture, I think, is to be engineered for alpha. And being engineered for alpha would be to say you want to have a fund size that creates the maximum opportunity for upside outlier performance. But I think that the funds that are making a mistake are the ones that get stuck in the middle. I just think you have to decide. You're either engineered for scale or you're engineered for alpha. And, we try to be engineered for alpha, but I have no objection to the people who are engineered for scale, right? Everybody can succeed with their strategy. In fact, the more different strategies there are, probably the better. And so then back to entrepreneurs, I have to have some way of recognizing the breakthrough startups. I have to have a different way of seeing than some of those big firms have, right? I have to be able to see potential in an idea perhaps before others do, or perhaps before the mainstream does. But the good news is there's plenty of opportunities to do that. And, you can make a living being good at that, as long as you're very disciplined about where you have an advantage and where you don't.
Does the math still work if a company doesn't have to hire as many people, doesn't have to raise as much, potentially only does a seed round, maybe a Series A, and then nothing else after that, and then becomes extremely profitable? I'm pretty sure that goes against the economics of the VC model, but you tell me.
Well, so here's what I think success is in my business. I need about 15% of my investments to make 20 times their money on the first check. And if 5% of them make 100 times their money on the first check, I'm awesome. So I'm good if I do the 15%, 20x. I'm awesome if I do that plus 5%, 100x. And, people say, well, does valuation matter? Well, of course it does, right? Because it's harder to make 100x on a high price investment than a low price investment. But valuation isn't all there is to it, right? You could have invested in the Series A of OpenAI and maybe made 100 times your money. And so, but like the job is the same. The job description is the same. Now, what it takes to succeed at the job might change. But in the end, the physics of returns are what they are. And so one of the things I like about investing, if you keep your fund small, it's like a business where you're taking swings and there's no called strikes. So you just see company after company and you ask, could I make 20x on the first check? Could I make 100x on the first check? If you don't see a possible way to do it, you let the ball go by. And everybody says, well, why didn't you swing at that? And I'm like, cause it's not the type of investment where if I make solid contact, I can get the returns that pay me for the risk I took. So if you're a small fund, you don't have to swing at that many pitches. You just wait. You wait until a meatball comes over the plate super slow and just swing at it with all your might. And you just, if one comes by that's not in your model or your strategy, you just say, there'll be another one next week. Silicon Valley will make more. And so that's, I think, how you have to do it when you're small, when you're a small fund. I think when you're a big fund, you say, okay, there's a funnel of deals. I got to be in the best ones. Every one's going to be a competition with all the other usual suspects, and I just got to win my share. And hopefully I get my share of the category winning companies.
So I guess the question becomes, well, there's lots of questions, but is San Francisco still the place to start a startup?
It looks pretty darn good. A lot of the really good AI companies are from there for sure. The way I come at that question, though, is to ask, where are pockets of the future being seen before other places? So like I'm a big believer in what William Gibson said, the sci-fi author, the future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed. And so the reason I think San Francisco is well positioned is that a lot of the future of AI is happening there. And so there are certain people at these companies who have a privileged point of view on the future as it unfolds. And so, those people are more likely to see what's missing in the future and build that missing thing. And so in that sense, I think San Francisco has an advantage. But I think that the trick, if you want to be a startup founder, is not just to get out of the building and talk to customers. It's to get out of the present and to visit valid futures before the rest of the world visits it. And regardless of where you are when you do that.
Makes a lot of sense. One more question for you before we sign off here. We were at Boxworks the other week, and we were talking to Aaron Levy about incumbents versus startups. He was saying that it's the best time to be a startup. And it's not just because of the advantage of speed, but it's the advantage of building AI first, agentic first. Do you believe that this is the best time in the world to be a startup? And if so, like, what chance do incumbents have? How do can they leverage the AI playbook like a startup might?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I just look at it like startup capitalism is a different type of capitalism than corporate capitalism. So, corporate capitalists, they want to extend their moat and compound their advantages and, do Hamilton Helmer 7 powers kind of stuff, and or Michael Porter 5 forces kind of stuff. Whereas like a startup capitalist wins not by compounding anything or extending anything. The startup capitalist wins by changing the subject. So startup capitalist shows up seemingly out of nowhere and says, you know what, I just refuse these rules. I'm just going to show up with a completely heretical new thing. I reject the premise of what the rules are. Here's the new rules. And most of the time they're wrong. And so they go out of business, but occasionally they're right. And so, like, do I believe that startups have a big opportunity in today's landscape? Heck yeah, because like it's changing really fast. And, the more things change fast, the more confusing it is, the more I think that favors the upstart, because the more disorienting it is for the incumbents. So I'd love to be a startup capitalist today, right? I think that startup capitalism is the thing that makes the future different than just being an extension of the present. So yeah, so I'm very bullish on startups these days.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to pitch Mike, go to floodgate.com. If you're a fantastic founder, please do. And Mike, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is fun.
All right. See you soon.
Stay around.
Okay.
That was great.
Yeah. He had a lot of good quotes. I'm gonna have to rewatch this and then read some of those books.
A lot of good references, indeed. All right. Well, let's talk about some of the releases that happened this week. It was an active week in AI land.
Model rich week.
Model rich week, indeed. So the first one is actually a feature out of ChatGPT. Alex, if you wouldn't mind. So ChatGPT introduces Pulse. And well, first of all, Matt, have you played with this yet?
I have. I actually, right after it was released, I recorded a video that should be published later today. Hopefully that comes out today. And yeah, I played with it. It's great. I have a lot of thoughts on it, but I want to hear yours first, Nick.
Yeah. So let's just break this feature down real quick. So it proactively delivers daily tailored updates. And so there's no waiting for a prompt. You don't have to interact with it. It just comes to you every morning. And it's based on past chats, feedback, and even apps that you've integrated with, right?
Yep.
So pretty compelling, actually. I really like this idea. And it's great for OpenAI to increase engagement, especially with the folks who haven't necessarily figured out that habitual use case with ChatGPT. So this comes at them instead of having them to form a habit of being proactive with ChatGPT. So I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot here. One, this and this is what OpenAI talked about when they released it is a step in the direction of AI becoming more proactive. Right now, it is effectively entirely reactive, meaning you have this thing, a problem, an idea, a question, you go on ChatGPT, you ask it and it responds, completely reactive. Now it is starting to learn what you like to learn about, what you like to know about, what you want to know more about. It's doing this computation overnight, maybe overnight, but basically when you're not using it, and then proactively surfacing it to you in the morning. And so I absolutely love this feature. there was this research paper, I think it came out maybe 6+ months ago from the team at Leta AI. And it was called Sleep Time Compute. And the premise of this paper was AI inferences running only at the time where somebody submits a prompt. And what's really interesting is it's a lot cheaper to run inference when it's not peak time. And so if you're doing a bunch of inference, preparing for something that somebody might ask you, the economics of that inference might actually be better, and you'll be able to get the response to the user more quickly with a higher quality because you could potentially spend more time on it. Latency isn't an issue if it's kind of being done asynchronously. So I loved that paper. Shout out to Leta and the team. Um, and this seems like it's going mainstream. That kind of notion of we're going to start doing the compute when it's not peak time, and we're going to present you with things proactively.
Yeah. The other aspect of this is personalization, right? Like obviously, but it's another step in that direction where your experience with the model, with the chat interface, or whatever interface you're using, is something that is completely based on past interactions and your experience with the model. And I think that the more that these models become personalized to how you're interacting with them, the more valuable they become. And so this is just another step towards that. Yeah, really compelling feature.
Yeah, and one last thing. So you can just like you're using ChatGPT, tell it exactly what you want to be updated on, what you want to learn more about. And so it curates this initial list based on memories, based on conversations, and you can tailor that list to exactly what you want. So I said, hey, tell me about artificial intelligence. They already knew that. And then I said, okay, give me also news from the Bay Area. I want to learn what's going on, what I should know about. And then I can start getting into like my hobbies and start telling it about that. And so I think it's a really cool feature. I actually haven't checked my pulse today. That sounds weird. I realized why they they say they named it that. But yeah, I absolutely see myself using this. There's a cool another startup called, I think it's Hux, Huxe, that is kind of doing something similar. It's much more of a proactive surfacing of information. I think we're going to see a lot more of that proactive AI.
Yeah, the assistant wars are on. All right, let's go to the next story here. So we have a number of model releases. The first one is WAN 2.5. So this generates 10-second 1080p videos with synchronized audio from text, image, or audio prompts. So obviously we have a multimodal architecture here. And what's interesting, let me scroll down here a little bit.
Is it open source? I can't remember.
It is open source, I believe. Actually, let me verify that.
There's like a word search on the page. See if it pops up. Looks like maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, oh, it's dicey going to the comments.
Yeah, we'll stay out of there. So yeah, so it's a single AI framework to handle text, image, video, and audio together, and it's trained with reinforcement learning from human feedback to improve alignment. So this design is key to keeping generated visuals and sound in sync. An example could be a character drumming matches the actual beat, and then also following user instructions more closely. So yeah, pretty interesting model. Have you played with this one yet?
No, we're doing internal testing. We're probably going to be creating, with the help of Jonah, a comparison video where we're comparing the new models that we're about to talk about right now. So let's get through them because we want to bring our next guest on.
All right, so the next one we have here is Kling 2.5 Turbo.
Another text to video model. It looks fantastic, high quality. It's fast. It's the turbo version. And yeah, it says right there, lower price. So I just love all this competition. And maybe Sora 2 is going to come out soon. I know Sam Altman was talking about a lot of compute heavy features coming out. Maybe that's one of them. We don't know though.
Yeah. A lot of these models are focused on consistency, right? Making sure that from beginning to end, characters are consistent, text is consistent. Let's go to the next one here. All right. So Quen image.
A lot of people comparing this to Nano Banana, saying
Yeah.
it's
High
comparable
praise.
quality.
Yeah.
And we have a little segment. Do you want to tease the segment coming up later?
Yeah, so we are going to be comparing image models. We'll be walking through a few different prompts, I believe. I don't know how many Alex and Jonah have in store for us, but we'll be comparing a few of these models,
And we've not seen them.
We have not seen them yet. It's going to be a complete surprise.
And
All right, I
maybe
think we
you
have
in the chat can help tell us what your favorites are as we're going through it.
indeed. Last one here, Ray 3. Generative video model that reasons through scene creation. So planning and refining visuals as it goes. I mean, this looks stunning. This looks very, very good.
It really does. I haven't used this one either. It feels like I mean, this is literally my full-time job and I cannot keep up with all of these.
Apparently, reportedly, this is the first generative model to produce video in true 10, 12, 16-bit HDR, which is the fidelity standard for film and VFX. So,
Nick, what's your timeline estimate before we have a full, not just a full movie, but a movie that people actually enjoy, and it's like it's a compelling story, compelling visuals? What do you think? How many years? How many months?
I don't think we're in years. I think we're in month territory. Usually, I like to give the predictions to the guests, so I'm not beholden to this. But I'll go out on a limb and say 6 months, 6 to 7 months.
Okay.
What about you?
I'm a little longer for me. I'd say probably 18 to 24 months. But at the rate of progression, I think you have a strong chance of being right.
All right, we shall see. All right, I think we have one more story. Alex is our guest here.
Yeah, he's Ahmed's here.
All right, let's actually just jump right to the guest. We'll save the story for later.
All right. So next we are bringing on Ahmed El-Kishki. He is a researcher from OpenAI, one of the folks on the team that got a perfect 12 out of 12 score on the ICPC competition, one of the hardest coding competitions in the world. Ahmed, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Matt. Great to be here.
Hello.
Hey, man. A lot of people were really blown away by that score, and we're gonna get to that in a second. But first, maybe talk to us about what's your role at OpenAI and what research you're primarily focused on right now.
Sure thing. I'm a research lead at OpenAI, so my team does most of the research. We're focusing on a lot of things. It all falls under the umbrella of reasoning. So it's teaching our models to sort of slow down and think through things to solve more and more difficult problems. Among those things are really important tasks, or tasks that we consider important, like coding, software engineering, and also being able to sort of interface with the world through tool use.
Okay.
So what are some of the big challenges that you're working on right now, if as much as you can disclose? What's top of mind?
Sure thing. So obviously you saw the ICPC results and sort of the spree of competitions we've done throughout the year. All of that has been nice, but it's sort of been like a benchmark to how good our reasoning models have gotten on tasks that are sort of verifiable. The next frontier that we're working on right now is making the model sort of good at things that are a little bit harder to quantify. So a software engineer's code, writing good code design, being an effective software engineer. And then some stuff that's really ambitious, like how do we train our models to sort of advance the state of human knowledge? Like right now, we've gotten to the point where our models are almost at par with some of the best people in some of these STEM competitions. But what does it take to sort of create something that is a scientist, something that can discover something new in biology, chemistry, mathematics? So all of these are really important problems that the team is working night and day to try to solve and just discover new research to improve our models.
And Ahmed, Sam Altman has put out some predictions on when OpenAI models are going to start discovering new knowledge. What are your predictions? What kind of timeline are we looking at?
So this is my personal prediction, but I think it's happening really soon. If I had to guess, basically by next year would be my guess. I think the models are getting really smart. They're improving day after day. We're seeing them sort of surpass even ourselves in many areas. And I think it's only a matter of time before they're sort of publishing a new proof or discovering something new in biology.
And so let's think about reasoning for a second. You're the expert, and I want to have a few questions for you. So as you thinking about the reasoning window and the time, the amount of time given to reason, there's kind of two functions there. There's the total time, and then how essentially the speed of tokens. If you can focus on one or the other, which one is more important in the short term? Are you thinking, okay, how do we allow the model to think longer, or how do we compress the amount of thinking into a shorter period of time?
I think both are really valuable. And kind of as the models get smarter and smarter, they naturally do tend to compress and become more effective thinkers. So at least for my team, we're trying to make the models think longer and longer, knowing that naturally as we train them and they get smarter, they'll be able to more effectively use their thinking tokens. So yeah, it's kind of a cop-out answer, but I do think that both are really important, and we're going to see models get to a state of intelligence using fewer and fewer tokens. But we're also going to see a world where they're thinking for hours, days, maybe very soon weeks, months, and solving some of the most important challenges that sort of humanity has to offer.
Have you? Go
Real
ahead,
quick,
Nick.
for people who are outside of the industry, might not be familiar with how this research and training process really works. Like, what actually goes into that to make the model think longer, or to kind of condense the inference down into a shorter window? What does that look like in practice?
Sure. So obviously we use reinforcement learning. I can't get into the nitty gritties, but it's almost like the way you teach a human. So as you want the model to become smarter and think longer, you have to give them sort of problems that are more and more difficult. It's almost like the way you teach somebody in a high school or college class. You give them problems, they think about it, they work through their steps. Sometimes they hit dead ends. And in that rare instance where they solve a more difficult problem, they sort of internalize the thought process that it took to get there. And at OpenAI, I mean, we've always been big on reinforcement learning. It's a bet that's we've tried from like Dota and games, like way before ChatGPT, and it's still a bet we're still pursuing to this day. So our research involves understanding how to make these reinforcement learning algorithms more efficient. How can we pour more compute into them on the path of achieving greater and greater intelligence? But also, how do we keep finding more and more difficult problems that actually matter? Obviously, you can't get to cure cancer right away. So you have to find those intermediate steps of like, okay, what are the skills would we actually take to get to the next level? And maybe eventually we get to a model that's as productive as some of the best academic researchers in the world.
It's so interesting. It almost feels like we're having like a very similar data problem to pre-training, where like eventually we've just used all the data, and now eventually we've found the hardest problems, and we have to look for more stepping stones before we get to the, okay, go cure research.
No, exactly. I actually do think that the spree of competitions we did over the last year was a good stepping stone towards that. Like when we first started out, our models could barely, solve any of these problems. They were like a 300 ELO on a scale of 3,000 plus. And so they'd barely solve, like sometimes the problems would actually crash the computer they were on because they'd write such a bad solution that it'd just be like run out of memory or just hang. So we knew that we couldn't, do effective research if the model isn't even able to solve these toy problems. But over time, it just kept getting better and better, and we'd see it like come up with cleverer strategies, understand problems on a fundamental level, we had this really cute graph at OpenAI where we had Mark Chen, our chief research officer, who is a competitive programmer in his own right. He coaches IOI for the US team.
Shout out, Mark.
And he's like at 2,200 elo or so. So we had this line on the charts with like Mark's face. And then we had Jakob, who's our chief research scientist, who's also a competitive programmer in his own right, even higher at 2,600. And as we were doing research, we just like look at our model and be like, okay, it's at 1,000 elo. That's 1,200 below Mark. And then each time we train our model, it just getting better and better. And our goal wasn't actually just to build a good competitive programmer. It was just like, hey, if we can actually make progress on this, we're going to get to a state of reasoning, a state of intelligence that can then go further. It can then be a good, software engineer, a good scientist. And I remember, sending Mark a message one day being like, I have some bad news. And it was just the chart with his picture X'd out.
It must be so bittersweet, right?
Yeah.
Like this thing that we've been working on so hard for so many years finally exceeded my capability. And then, oh yeah, wait, it finally exceeded my capability and I'm one of the best in the world. So yeah, I mean, I'm very similar to what happened in the chess world, right?
Exactly.
So Ahmed, I want to ask you: have you seen any hints of an upper limit on scaling reasoning? Right, we have reasoning as a scaling law. We have pre-training as a scaling law. Have you seen anything that hints at, okay, there is kind of this length of time that a model can think, or a number of tokens that it churns through where there's diminishing returns?
So it's still really early in the reasoning paradigm. We still firmly believe that scaling reasoning is going to be the path towards more intelligent models. We haven't really seen too much of this plateauing. Just maybe a few days ago or a week ago, I can't remember from the cycle, one of our codex models to solve a refactor problem took 7 hours. And I mean, that's astounding. It was just in there trying things out, testing itself. And even during the competitive programming competitions, we competed at ACCoder for the heuristic competition, and our models ran, autonomously for 10 hours, the duration of the competition, just sort of like trying things out, figuring out better solutions, submitting. So we're not really seeing, and we don't expect to see in the near future, this paradigm sort of failing.
And so you guys released Pulse, and like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, I mean, it makes perfect sense. You're doing all of this compute proactively when the user isn't actually asking for something directly. And there was this paper, Sleep Time Compute. How much do you think that is a new scaling law? How much do you think about sleep time compute when you're thinking about reasoning and kind of taking these models to the next level?
Oh, it's a very important milestone. So I think instead of it being like a separate paradigm, it's the same paradigm. Before, we'd ask ChatGPT and it'd give the answer in a second or just a few seconds. As we began giving it more and more problems, this started going into hours, and people don't want to sit in front of the screen for hours. So naturally, the next step was just to let it run when you don't actually care. So when you're sleeping, but you can imagine you're a researcher working on an important problem. Maybe you don't care if it takes a week or a month. So you ask it and then you wait. Every once in a while, you check some intermediate progress. And when it's done, maybe it sends you an email. So we really don't see this actually slowing down or stopping. As we begin tackling more and more important problems, more and more difficult problems, we expect the time it takes to get a solution to take longer and longer, which makes sense. If you were, an employee at a company and you gave somebody a really difficult problem, you wouldn't expect them to turn around in 10 seconds. You'd expect them to do their due diligence, take their time, think it through. And we expect the same thing from our AIs.
All right, so I think it's time to talk about the ICPC, the star of the show. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is, why it's so meaningful, just a little background? And for the audience, y'all scored a 12 out of 12. I believe that the next closest is 10 out of 12, and that was Gemini 2.5. So yeah, tell us a little bit about this and why it's so significant.
Definitely. So the ICPC, the World Finals, are the premier competitive programming college competition. it takes the best college teams of three from all over the world, 140 plus teams, 3 people, 1 computer, 12 incredibly challenging problems. Just as a quick like example, I probably would barely be able to solve like one or something in this in the
Can
time
you
span
like
they give us.
in very basic terms to like describe what one of these problems looks like?
Sure. The problems are a word problem. Maybe it's like, hey, you have this traveling salesman or something like that who's, visiting these cities. Which order of cities should they visit
Mm.
such that they get home quickly, such that they visit all the cities once? So they come up with these like, practical word problems that try to solve an important problem. You then write your code and you submit it. Once you submit it, the automatic judge on the back end tests to make sure that the solution is efficient, uses the right amount of memory, the right amount of speed, I guess, and that it's correct. It gives the right answer. So these problems are incredibly challenging, and you have to write some complex code, sometimes know some really advanced mathematics. Yeah, and the students have practiced like so much to be able to do this. So really shout out to all the students there. Like the ability to solve some of these problems requires not just reasoning and practice, but grit to be able to power through whenever you get to blockers. So these are like some of the most difficult problems, and the students have 5 hours to solve them. And our models, we submitted them. We took 2 of our, I guess, reasoning models. One of them is GPT-5. GPT-5 is available to everybody. And then we took the experimental reasoning model from IMO, from our IMO competition earlier this year, from Alex Way, Cheryl, Noam. And yeah, we just wanted to test out how far reasoning had progressed. Both models, were doing some solutions here. GPT-5 is really fast. It kept churning out solutions. The experimental reasoning model was a bit slower. And then the experimental reasoning model is just sort of selected from the answers to the problems and submitted them to the same basically sandbox as anyone else in the competition.
And you said it had kind of multiple potential solutions. Is that all done in one pass through its chain of thought, or is it, hey, I'm going to generate a bunch of solutions, I'm going to have another model select the best one?
Yeah, it's the latter. So basically, we generated a bunch of solutions from each model. And then the experimental model was like, okay, this looks like the best solution. Let's submit this one. Because, in case of a tie, the number of submissions you do actually does affect the overall score. But yeah, it was a very simple setup. The way these competitions go at OpenAI is just like a week or so before the competition, a ragtag group of like researchers come together and it's like, okay, let's get started on this. And they, implement something. And usually it's really simple because it's sort of a passion project. And so, yeah, we basically had to just submit multiple or, sample multiple solutions here. And then one model picks the best one and submit it.
And while you were looking through the chain of thought and the reasoning, was there anything surprising that stood out to you?
So we have a lot of competitive programmers at OpenAI, and it's always really interesting to see them be like, wow, like that's exactly what I would have done. One thing that the model loves to do is like some of these algorithms are very complex, very complicated, difficult to get right, but usually there's a brute force solution that's really easy. It's not going to pass. It's not going to solve the problem because it's under strict time constraints, but it'll have the same answers. So what it does is it writes a brute force solution, and then it compares the answers in the brute force solution to its super optimized, efficient solution. And when it's sure that it match, it submits the efficient solution. So it's sort of like a way of unit testing its own code to make sure that the very complex code it writes is correct. And what's really amazing is we didn't prompt the model to do this. We didn't even prompt it with very much except for, hey, solve this competitive programming problem. But it sort of developed this intuition on its own during the RL training. And that's the beauty of RL. Like when we peek at the chain of thoughts, it develops these strategies all over and it learns it through just trial and error while it's being trained.
So you got this perfect score. Was that surprising, or did you have a hunch that it was going to perform that well?
We knew it'd perform well, but we had no idea it would get them all right. So we were kind of expecting, maybe 10, 11 problems.
Sure.
And we were watching it as we were submitting. What was really exciting is that like GPT-5 answered the first 11 problems correct on its first try, which is crazy because this is like a model available to anybody right now. But then on the last problem, it kept getting it wrong over and over again. And so like the team kind of resigned itself. It's like, okay, 11 out of 12 is it's pretty good. So it submitted it 7 times, and 7 times it got it incorrect. And then the experimental reasoning model, which is thinking for a lot longer. Their solution started rolling in, and the model selected one of those to submit next, and it got it wrong. And then it did it again, and then on the 9th attempt, it got it correct. And there was just so much excitement in the team. So no, we didn't expect it, but we were like so ecstatic because it really is a testament to like thinking longer lets you solve those more difficult problems.
Yeah. And how long did it take to finish?
I think our last submission was maybe we had like 20 or 30 minutes to go in the entire competition. So it was like getting there. It was almost over.
Down to the wire, yeah.
So Ahmed, OpenAI invests a lot into making models really good at coding, and you're also developing a lot of coding tools for human developers. What is the reason for that? And is programming the language of AGI, which I've heard, I believe Srinivas, your CTO of B2B applications, said that on our show when we spoke to him last time. What are your thoughts there?
So obviously at OpenAI, we have a lot of coders, a lot of researchers in computer science, and we spend a lot of our time coding. And we think that coding is a really good paradigm and potentially something that can accelerate our models towards AGI purely because they can accelerate our own research. Right now, so many of our own researchers just type in what they want into Codex, it makes the changes, they review it, and that's how we build our models these days. You can imagine a world if the models get good enough at coding where maybe they're going off and doing their own research. They're writing out, code scaffolding for these crazy experiments, and they come back and be like, okay, this is the next step. So if you ever want to get to a world where the models themselves are doing the research to advance the models, coding is the language that we have to sort of improve. It's probably not the only one, but it's definitely a important one.
Yeah, and you guys wrote a paper a little while ago in which you basically showed. I'm forgetting what that paper was. It was able to replicate research papers, right? It was basically so it does seem like being able to code, being able to replicate a research paper's code and execute it. This is all kind of in the realm of let's have self-improving artificial intelligence. Is that kind of what we're getting at here?
That's exactly what we're getting at. And like I mentioned before, replicating a research paper is almost like 101 for starting a new PhD. You have to first be able to read through a paper, understand it, replicate it. And then the next step is maybe you propose those new ideas guided by having read the literature. In this case, our model likely knows a lot of the literature already, and being able to not just propose new ideas, but follow through, set up the right experimental setup. And the nice thing about computer science is it's so much easier to set up an experiment, to sort of understand the state of maybe machine learning, because the experiment is literally code. You write code, you have the compute, you run the experiments. That feedback loop is so amenable to reinforcement learning. So we do think it's such a good bet to take.
So what happens after this? What happens after you get a perfect score? What's your next challenge?
Yeah, so the perfect score was exciting. Shout out to all the students in that competition. They're some of the brightest. But our goal in itself isn't the competition. We are not really optimizing for the competition itself.
It's to be smarter than Mark Chen.
Of course.
Yeah.
But our goal is to, benefit humanity. And one thing I'm really excited about is watching our models actually contribute to human knowledge. Now that they've gotten good at reasoning, they've gotten good at tool use, they've got good at replicating, research papers. I can see a world really soon where our models are spending weeks investigating important problems, maybe important mathematical problems, computer science problems. Maybe they're looking into physics, chemistry, and tackling some of the important problems that humanity cares about. My hope is that we're not really evaluating on competitive programming or competitive math next year, that we're like publishing papers and showing the world that, hey, this is sort of the next step to bring humanity further. So that'd be my litmus test for, we're improving our models.
Based on what Sam Altman tweeted a few days ago, where you guys are going to be releasing a lot of very compute heavy features, and those are going to go to pro users. Obviously, we're very limited on the amount of compute. It seems like we have an enormous amount, which we do, but it's still very limited based on what people need and the use cases. And so now you have decisions like, should we invest more in pre-training, post-training, safety, products, research? Where are you thinking are the most important places to invest those limited compute resources?
It's going to be a little bit of a cop-out answer, but I think all of them are important. I think the solution is we just need more compute. I think good post-training, making the model available to the world is really important, because that's how you have all of humanity learning it now as opposed to later. You don't want inequality of what is available. And that's one thing that OpenAI has been doing really well. It's sort of brought AI to the masses. You have, the GPT models have been free use for pretty much everyone. Adoption has been great. People have been introduced to AI. So I think post-training is important. I think safety, alignment is important as the models get smarter. We need to make sure that they're aligned with what we care about, that they're producing safe content. But continuing to improve research and getting the model to a state where it is meaningfully making progress and addressing some of humanity's most important problems, that also requires more compute. So I think the answer is we just need more compute all around, and we shouldn't,
let me ask it in a different way, Ahmed. Based on the demand and what you would invest, how much more compute, like just orders of magnitude, or how many times more compute is necessary today, just based on today's requirements? What would you say? Do we need 10x, 100x, or just like as much as you can give?
I actually think as much as you can give. Whenever we have more compute at OpenAI, we're always getting more compute. Researchers just use it up like that, and it becomes the normal. And the more compute we're sort of given, the more exciting work that we can actually produce. So I think we're at a state where we're always just needing more and more compute, and we're delivering.
Yeah. Okay. And as you're building out these new data centers, as they're coming online, what are you most excited about personally investing that compute?
So I think, as I mentioned before, we've gotten past the state of some of the, I would call it the low-hanging fruits. How do we actually start, in making meaningful progress in areas that that are a little bit more difficult for RL to tackle? I think producing meaningful knowledge is such a difficult problem. Like, how do you find like an RL task that says, hey, publish a completely new proof? How do you sort of quantify how good sort of implementing some sort of application is? How do we, provide meaningful value to engineers working in their job, or finance, or the medical professionals? All of this is sort of an unknown area. The path forward requires a lot of research, and that research is hungry for compute. So I'm really excited about tackling some of these more difficult problems.
All right, Ahmed, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. This has been so cool. Congratulations on the ICPC and getting 12 out of 12. And it's so cool to see the research coming out of your team.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
good to
thanks
see
a
you.
lot. See you around.
All right, very cool. It's cool to get an insider take. Like he and his team are on the forefront of this technological revolution. So it's I feel very fortunate being able to get folks like him on the show.
Yeah. Learned a lot, and all we need is infinite compute, and we'll be there.
It's so simple.
It's so simple. All right, what's next, Alex? Do you have a surprise for us?
We are doing our segment. Yeah, so we have a new segment. We're calling it Slop or Not. And
Slop
what
or
we're gonna
not?
do, yeah. So we're gonna basically have a blind vote. We're gonna have 4 images from 4 different models using the same prompt. We're not gonna know which model is, or sorry, which image is from which model. And then Nick, you and I will just say what our favorites are. And for those of you who are watching right now, please do the same. Drop your comment 1, 2, 3, 4 in the chat. Let us know which one your favorite is. We're going to be a little bit delayed, so just drop it in there and we'll try to get to it. So with that, Alex. All right. So Nick, you want to take us away with the prompt?
All right. So we have an ancient stone archway in a desert showing a lush rainforest through it with a waterfall pouring onto the sand.
And
Getting
which,
some
can you just
Stargate vibes.
clarify which is 1, 2, 3, 4?
Oh, so upper left we'll call 1.
Yep.
And then 2 will be to the right. Yeah. 3 and then 4 bottom right.
Perfect. All right, Nick, what's your favorite and why? Richard DaCosta says number 2. Let us know why also.
Number 2 is not a bad choice. I gotta say, I'm leaning towards 4. I like the different layers. You have an arch within an arch. I find that waterfall to be pretty realistic looking. Rainforest.
Can we zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, it is kind of small.
All right, so here's 1. Okay. Maybe we can get all 4 in the same zoom, but yeah, we can look at them independently for a sec. Yeah, I'm torn between 1 and 4. I always kind of look for just like overall quality, accuracy, detail, and it looks like number 4 is my favorite.
We're going to agree on the first one. That's kind of boring.
No, yeah, okay, forget it. I'm going with number 1. I don't want to be aligned with you on this.
All right. 1 is also good. I think my least favorite, if I had to say, would be 3.
Yeah.
Okay, align there too.
All right, so what are the results? What do we got? All right, there it is. So 1 was Quen Image, 2 Nano Banana, GPT Image 1, okay, and Sea Dream. Very interesting. So we both did gravitate towards Sea Dream.
Yeah.
But Quen Image, close number 2. All right, let's go to the next one. Yeah, here we go.
Okay. A herd of miniature elephants carrying lanterns crossing a tightrope between skyscrapers at sunset.
And actually, to just clarify real quick, the ordering is different in every one of them. So the for example, Sea Dream is not the bottom right. I hope this time it's random.
Okay, so 1 is upper left, 4 is bottom right. Let's see.
I already know. I mean, the one that jumps out to me as the most impressive, it looks like, yeah, number 4. It's like what's it called? What's that style called? Tilt zoom, tilt something.
Yeah.
It looks incredibly realistic. They look small relative to the background. I'd say number 1 is probably a close second for me, but what do you think?
So I was going to say 1. We have a problem with elephants going opposite directions, which is concerning. I don't know how that's going to work out for them.
How concerning is it, Nick?
Very concerning.
All right, fair.
I mean, this can only lead to some casualties. But, upper right, least favorite. I think the dark shadowing is kind of a cop-out. Bottom left looks a little too cartoonish for me.
I don't know. Make a choice. I'm taking 4. What do you got?
Yeah, I'll go 1. All
right. Let's see what they are. Quen Image. All right. Sea Dream. Interesting. So Nano Banana, Quen Image on this one. I honestly thought we were going to choose Sea Dream every time, but this is great. Quen Image. Fantastic. All right. Let's go to the next one. All right, Nick, break us down.
All right, we got a time lapse composite landscape blending spring blossoms, summer sun, autumn leaves, and a winter snow seamlessly.
Okay, so bottom left, it
Interesting.
seamlessly completely breaks that, right?
Yep, that's a hard pass. Top right doesn't do a great job either. There is some sun, fall.
Yeah, I think the top left is super consistent. It's a single image in which you do see different seasons. Very interesting. You get that with bottom right as well, but it's not as clearly delineated between the different seasons.
Which is perhaps an argument for why it's so good, because it is so seamless. I might go bottom right.
All right, I'm going top left. I'm going number 1.
All right, that's just, oh wow.
This is crazy.
Nano
Okay, I
banana.
really didn't think this was gonna happen where like different prompts really got us to choose different models. So GPT image 1, that was mine. Yours was Nano Banana. Quen image did not follow the prompt. Seed Dream
It's not bad.
it's not bad, but it certainly didn't follow the prompt. All right, let's go to the next one.
right.
I think there might be a couple funny ones. Okay, all
We'll,
right.
we'll do one more and then bring on the guest. Okay, so what we have here, using the first image as Matt's headshot and the second as Alex's headshot,
Zoom in a little bit.
transform Matt into a superhero on a red carpet with Alex dressed as a paparazzi taking photos, and add playful sparkles. I mean, these aren't bad.
Yeah. Okay. So top left, that's definitely Alex's face on as Superman, right? Because the prompt said put me as Superman.
Yes. Can we zoom out a little bit? See that prompt one more time.
Yeah, Matt into okay. So top left, I think actually looks good, but it didn't follow the prompt. Bottom left, that's definitely me. That is actually what my abs look like. I don't know if you knew that, Nick. And
allegedly, yep.
yeah,
Mhm.
and then the photographer not this one I'd say is probably decently accurate in terms of the face. And then let's see the fourth one.
Bottom right kind of misses. That's not you.
Yeah, no, neither of those are me. I like the sparkle around the
sparkle's
area.
not bad. Yeah. All right, I might go top right. Seems to be most. I'm going to go to bottom left.
Yeah, I'll actually go top right then. So that's
Okay.
number 2. Let's see.
That's
GPT
my
image 1
that's my
and
third.
Nano Banana.
That's my third Nano Banana. I've got a favorite apparently.
Let's do one more.
One
We
more?
got
One
another
more.
couple minutes.
Okay, I'm glad we did this. Using the first image as Matt's headshot and the second as Alex's headshot, render Matt as a chef serving spaghetti to Alex wearing a bib and making a mess.
Can we pause for a second and just really appreciate top right? Can you zoom into that? Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Should we
That's
get a little closer?
amazing.
Can we get any closer?
Yeah, let's get closer to the bib, please. That's really what's important here. Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
Nice
That's
zoom.
the winner right there. I love how it made the person on the bib much more, let's just say, round than what
little more
the
round.
person wearing the bib is.
That's a pretty good Matt.
That actually is a pretty good me. That is
It's a pretty good Matt.
and that is what I look like when I feed Alex spaghetti.
Happens every Saturday, right? Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, let's see the other ones. Can you zoom out a little bit? So I would say, like, just looking at them kind of briefly, the top right in terms of character accuracy, that's my favorite. What do y'all think in the comments? Which one are we choosing here? You know, use any metric you want.
Let's zoom in on bottom left, please. I don't think this is either of you. It's a little more Matt than Alex.
You know what's funny? The background looks like what the background looked like for that headshot. So I took like professional headshots with my family, and in the background was a bunch of yellow flowers. That is kind of what my neighborhood looks like. Now, unfortunately, I don't know how to feed Alex pasta in this image because it's everywhere on him. But I'd say like my face looks okay. It looks decently accurate. That's not Alex in the slightest, though.
No, that's Timothy Chalamet, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I see it. I see it.
Let's go. I mean, it's pretty clear what the winner is here.
Yeah, neither of these look accurate. Just in terms of our face. Okay. And then let's see top left one more time.
It's
And
just
then
hard to miss.
let's just zoom in one more time on top right. I really just need to take that in. There we go. Yep. So I think we're going to be in agreement on this one.
It's yeah. Let's end in alignment here. Top right.
That's fair. GPT image 1.
Rising. Okay.
Congratulations. So I didn't keep score here. Maybe
Yeah, we
we
need to
should do
tally
that
those.
next time. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Which one was your favorite model overall, would you say?
I mean, I picked Nano Banana 3 times, so that's got to be it. I think you
Yeah.
had image ChatGPT tool or GPT image 1 twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dream 1 a couple times. Not bad.
I thought Nano Banana was gonna take the crown for me, but
So did I.
there we go.
All
All
right.
right. That was fun. Let's bring on our third and final guest, Emad Mostak. He is founder of Intelligent Internet, also founder of Stability AI, and deep thinker thinking about the future of the economy and what that might look like with the effect of AI on it. So, Emad, welcome to the show.
Hey, let's just be here.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
So first, tell us what you're focused on now with the Intelligent Internet. Describe what that is and what you're excited about.
Yeah, so 3 years ago we released Stable Diffusion, and now look at the terrors it's unwrapped. The faster.
Yeah, what was your favorite image?
Oh, obviously it was the last one. I mean, come on.
All right, great.
I left a year ago because I thought that these agents and AIs are getting really, really smart, and next year would be the inflection year. So Intelligent Internet, we were trying to figure out what does a new economic system look like? How do you get AI to everyone? And how do you balance what's coming? Because again, it could disrupt the entire economy. So we've been working on a brand new economic theory. We've got a book on that, but also fully open source agents and models for healthcare, education, government, and more. And so we've been steadily releasing those, and we're about to release a whole bunch to come.
Yeah, and your new book is
The Last Economy.
The Last Economy. Sorry,
Yeah.
fumbling on my words. Why did you name it that?
It's because we've had these inversions of land was the important thing with serfs, then you had factories and the internet with capital. And now, what are we going to change to when AI can think better than us and human cognitive labor goes negative? So it's almost like this is going to be the last economic shift that we have. Where do we go? How do we balance? And that was a bit scary, but also maybe a little bit hopeful on the other side if we can balance it right.
Yeah, I
and
think you've made the prediction that you've given it 1,000 days until traditional economic structures are obsolete. Are you staying true to that? And if so, how likely is it that we emerge from this in a positive state where more people are participating, more people are benefiting from the economy versus a negative one where wealth and power is consolidated even more?
It's been 1,000 days since ChatGPT launched. Can you imagine that?
That's wild.
It's been a year since the reasoning model O1 was released.
that you're saying that as it's a short timeline.
I'm saying imagine what another 1,000 days
Right.
looks like.
How much has changed over the last 1,000 days?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So in 1,000 days, most human cognitive labor, again, we see the ICPC results and things like that. The AI will strictly be able to do it better than you. Now, will it take over your job? No. Can it take over your job if you're on the other side of the computer screen? Yes. And so again, it's once it gets that good, it can't be reversed. And now it's about putting these building blocks together. It will scan all of your Slacks and all your messages and drafts, and there'll be a virtual Matt or Nick that suddenly enters in your place, like Talented Mr. Ripley style. This is the type of economic incursion that we're going to see. And I don't know, right now it doesn't look like it's going to end up very good. You've had that paper by Eric Ben Lofsenson recently in MIT showing all these jobs being lost at the early stages. What does a graduate do, and how can we enable them to navigate what's to come? That's something we have to start taking very seriously, very, very quickly.
Yeah, and I've been asking a lot of AI leaders lately about this, I guess, not a meme, but kind of this thing that I've been seeing going around, the permanent underclass. I'm sure you've seen it, right? So once AGI is achieved, the only thing that really matters at that point is capital and how much capital you can put towards compute. And whoever has the most compute, essentially wins, and everybody is consigned to this permanent underclass. And so, what's your take on that? And how do we prevent that?
So yeah, I mean, like when I see 110 gigawatts of power and millions of GPUs, I'm like, you probably only need like 10 billion active parameters for these models, right? Like you look at the Chinese models versus the Western models and the gap between them. And instead, what I see is not data centers of geniuses, like Dario said, but data centers of knowledge workers, effectively. Because labor doesn't need capital. Capital doesn't need labor anymore. Like you look at something like the Fed's mandate, reduce rates, consumers consume more, companies hire more people. It's going to be reduced rates, companies hire more GPUs. So what you need to do is rethink how money flows in the system. So our proposal is to give everyone a universal AI, and we have a version of Bitcoin for that, except for when we sell the coin, it goes to supercomputers for cancer and helping everyone through their cancer journey with a free AI, or supercomputers for education or government. But then you need to really think how cash works and how cash flows, because once you have these GPUs, million GPUs by Elon or whoever, macro hard could conceivably outcompete every single software company on the planet.
And describe what macro hard is for the folks watching.
Macro hard is Elon's version of Microsoft, but with XAI. A fully autonomous software company that he's building.
End-to-end generative software, generative operating system.
Generative sales, the whole lot. Like
Right.
you'll probably interact with it via a Zoom like this, but he's coming for those jobs. So I think that we need to have a new basis of money and a new way that money flows. And so the book outlines how to do that from a first principles approach to the economy, where you don't have concepts like utility or equilibrium, all these things that assume humans in the loop, because now it's humans plus AIs in the economy. And we need to understand what the economy is first, and then how to optimize it. Because like, how do you capture a genius, the next Euler or Einstein or von Neumann in Africa getting ChatGPT 5? That's obviously good for the economy, but it's not captured. So we go through structures like that.
I've been talking again to a lot of folks, and they believe Balaji said this. AI models are basically capable of middle to middle in terms of task autonomy, and humans are still needed on the prompting and then the verifying on both ends. And so humans on the ends, AI middle to middle. Do you not agree with that in the long run? Do you think humans are not going to be required on the edges of these workflows?
I think it was true until like 4 months ago. So if you look at how the OpenAI ICPC model performed, it was because they built a verifier. And that was the big differentiator. Now we have verifiers. We can have almost infinite context length and execution length where you can just set it and forget it, like Replit Agent 3. It can go for hours now. And the example I give is this. Do you think your Tesla can drive coast to coast?
Today, probably not, but it's pretty darn close.
Exactly. And what's the difference between doing that and navigating a work day, Like, we have to put the building blocks together, but we've already got these things in place from diffusion and transformer models. And what we found actually when we looked at the economy, leveraging GPT-5 Pro and a whole bunch of other things, is that it's all basically the equations of generative AI. Like, you're actually trying to create an internal model as a person or a company. And right now, our organizations are slow, dumb AIs that manage to navigate. So I think our really smart AIs will definitely be able to navigate.
And then what about in non-verifiable domains, right? Because you said, hey, we can just create verifiers and domains that can be verified. They can accomplish end-to-end workflows. What about creative writing? What about customer interactions? I was about to say customer service, but obviously not.
Yeah.
Are there areas where there cannot be verifiers? And in those areas, do you foresee humans always being in the loop?
Well, I think we can look at examples like Google in the AIME studies showed that their AI scored higher than human doctors on empathy. And now you're seeing really like engaging virtual influencers and other things. You're seeing that human speech level be breached. I think that the latent spaces of these models, particularly diffusion models, can really resonate with people. And they're also open-ended. Again, we give the example of a self-driving car, and the self-driving car algorithms use diffusion models, like was in the spaghetti. Like what's the verifier on the spaghetti picture? There's a human one and there's an accuracy one. It can learn generalized concepts, just like a self-driving car can generalizably drive in roads. So I think that it's difficult to figure out where that is, particularly because when you're in a new environment, you can have this observe, orient, detect, decide, and act loop. And now these reasoning models have those, which is why now you're seeing video reasoning models, you're seeing image reasoning models, and more. They can basically adapt to new environments where there aren't verifiers and even create their own verifiers from very small sample sets.
Well, let's actually change gears a little bit here. I want to go back to intelligent internet. So can you walk us through, like, what are the big problems that you're focused on right now within the company? And also, as a follow-up to that, if you are successful in your mission here, like, what does the world look like? Like, how do you know that you've been successful?
So I just had a baby daughter, and I was like, who's gonna be the AI
Congratulations.
that? Thank you. Just about sleeping through the night. It's like when she grows up, what job is she gonna do? She's gonna have an AI buddy that's far smarter than her. Who's gonna have coded that? Who's gonna code the AI that runs the government, our financial system, our healthcare system? And I think that group of AI, which is based on common knowledge, like regulated industry stuff, needs to be open source, open data. It can't be biased, or it needs to be biased to you. So we're building the infrastructure for that. So we have AI Agent, which is a state-of-the-art open source agent. We have multi-agent systems. AI Medical, our medical model, performs at ChatGPT level and 8 billion parameters. And again, we've been quite quiet, but we've just been releasing these. And next year, we want to have, for example, a full open source stack that you can have on any computer in the world in every language. And we're determined to get this, that will just double check all diagnoses. And that will save so many lives just sitting there as a piece of open source software. Our model is that all this computation we use to secure a Bitcoin type currency, because I think there'll be demand for that. And we want people to buy the currency and then say 100% of those proceeds go to cancer supercomputer or multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's education. And we think there'll be demand for that. And it could create a very positive loop. So some of this $1 trillion of compute that's coming online goes to organizing cancer knowledge and making it available, goes towards giving everyone a free AI that's aligned to them, because we don't need to manipulate people for ads and things like that. So that's a theory. We're going to find out if it's true, but that specific type of AI is what we're looking at, which again, I don't think should be ChatGPT teaching your kids, but you should use ChatGPT as an API into that, right? You should use the best open source as an API into that, and the decision making should be fully open source.
Okay, a few questions on what you just said. First, Stability AI was open source. Now your new company is open source. Why are you so bullish on open source? And what do you say to those who say there are security and safety risks with open sourcing these frontier models?
So I don't want to build AGI. I want to build really useful AI that can teach my kids. Like the AI that teaches my kids calculus shouldn't have Reddit data in it, right?
Mm.
The AI that kind of guides me on my healthcare again I want to have pure, transparent data, which we should have, because again, you're trying to build an AI that's a really good doctor, a really good teacher. It's an S curve versus that. The reason I want to have open source is because if you have the control of these economies of scope based AIs in just the hands of a few, you'll have all sorts of weird biases in there. And that doesn't adapt to everyone, because there's this new universe of graduates that we have and we're going to hire. You're just going to be able to borrow them from people. I think you need to own your own AI, and that's also why it needs to be runnable on the edge. That's why we got an 8 billion parameter model that outperforms MedGemma at 27B and the remote stuff as well. So I've always been focused on that, and that's why Stable Diffusion was 2 billion parameters. It was a couple of gigabytes. Permissionless innovation allows people to have these brains, but we're not building these brains right. We're not building them aligned to us, because if you use ChatGPT and you're a Christian, it doesn't have Christian ethics, or a Muslim, it doesn't have Muslim ethics. And that AI that's next to us all through our lives, it needs to be aligned to us, and it needs to reflect our values and our ethics, and open source composability is the best way to do that. But we're not even going to get that with open weight models. Someone's got to build open source, open data models that you can mix and match and adapt, and then infrastructure to run them, where you can run it yourself or use the free version provided.
For those who are not technically savvy, the idea of running these models on the edge, putting together the different data sources, making sure they're unbiased and aligned with what I want, like how do you make that easy enough for the technically unsavvy to actually do that?
You have an agent that helps you do that and then learns from you. And this is what OpenAI Pulse is an indicator of, this sleep time compute. You can have 110 IQ AI on your laptop today that can interface with your phone, and it updates that data because you don't want an unbiased AI. You want an AI that's biased to you. And that's very difficult to do with the closed models. You want it to be able to call on the closed models when it needs to, because it needs that extra smarts. But again, the way that we're building our agent will allow you to compose that and adapt it and see where your biases are and see, hey, I'm a Republican or a Democrat. These are my beliefs, and it can help you walk through those types of things and how you interact. And I think that'll be really useful for people as well as a check on themselves.
So you've proposed this concept, proof of benefit incentives, right? We've talked a little bit about this already. What are the challenges to implementing something like this? Are you seeing any uptick in other people talking about this? Is this something that you're really fighting for right now and focused on? I guess it all rolls into the company's mission as well. But yeah, walk us through how this is progressing.
Yeah, so we're announcing our first big supercomputer in a month or so for helping organize global AI policy and regulation and knowledge on how people navigate this with a bunch of big partners. But we found it really engaging when we talk to people and say, why hasn't anyone organized all the cancer knowledge of the world and made it openly available? Let's build a supercomputer for that. Having that feedback loop and then having these supercomputers secure a Bitcoin type currency, we've had a lot of positive response to that, but we thought we had to build a proper economic theory, which we've done now, and there'll be the academic papers that follow, because it kind of makes sense. Like right now, you need to try and change the way that money and value comes, because we know that value comes from sharing ideas, but it's not captured by our economy. This is what we call the mind metrics in our economic system. You have your material stuff, which is classical GDP, but it can go up when you get cancer, It's not good. You have your intelligence, which is the sharing, the network value, and that's people owning digital currency or being part of a network, and then diversity for resilience, we call it mind. And so once we show that and we give very tangible benefits, again, we've been really impressed by the response, and now it's the time to scale that and get this stuff out there. Because we've done zero press to date. We haven't done a single article. Now we're doing the podcast coming on and saying, hey, people read and see, do you want to come and join in on this?
Do you see any challenges with implementing, I mean, a new currency with government regulation? And I know, especially the current administration is seemingly very pro crypto. But what challenges do you foresee?
Well, so I think, again, right now, what we need to do is stack GPUs to organize our collective wisdom that's open and make it available to everyone. Whether or not it can grow to a full economic system, probably not. It's going to be really hard. But we got to put some ideas about how money flows when the AI will get all the dollars, or the owners of the AI will get all the dollars. So that's why we're proposing, let's start with universal AI. Everyone gets a free AI to do the important, meaningful things. Use that to organize the compute. And then let's see where we go from there. We have some more proposals about how maybe money can flow from you being human versus from banks, which I think makes sense. Everyone has a level of AI capability by default, because otherwise they're left behind if they have a gap and they can't subscribe. And again, OpenAI and others are offering it for free. But is it aligned? Not really. There's always this upsell thing. But you got to start somewhere. And right now, digital assets are legal. But what's a decent digital asset? If I have a digital asset where I can buy it, and then all the money I put in goes towards an Alzheimer's supercomputer, I'll buy that. And it's needed. So we just think there's a gap now, and that can create a new type of working model where you can release everything for free because you're increasing the intelligence and trust and network effects. But it's something that hasn't really been tried before. So that's again why we were looking at it.
And okay, so just like taking the pessimistic view, people are pretty selfish. Like you're saying, okay, if there was some asset that I can invest in that helped cure cancer, I would just do that. But I think people are going to think, how does it help me? Now, obviously, if you don't have cancer, or somebody close to you doesn't, it's hard to empathize and really think about, okay, I could either buy some food or I could buy this thing that's going to help society. Like, how do you kind of balance that?
Well, so the reason that you buy it is because number go up, right? So OpenAI and Anthropic have added 20 billion of net revenue this year. All the software sector in the US has added 40 billion. And there's been 50 billion of net digital asset purchases. Next year is going to be 100 billion. So my market size is $100 billion, and I have a fork of Bitcoin on supercomputers that do good. So I'm like Bitcoin, but green energy, and every single dollar sold doesn't go to Lamborghinis, it goes to benefit. And we'll build computers and we'll build really great data sets and models and invite people to participate on that as well, just like we spun up Luther AI and these other communities. And again, let's see if that works. It's going to be a lot less competitive than competing on ARR between Claude Code and the million other code editors anyway.
And but you're like, how does the actual number go up? I mean, you're assuming people are going to be trading it like normal, and then a certain percentage of it goes towards compute to cure cancer, to cure Alzheimer's. Is that,
Oh,
am I misunderstanding it?
no, it's just like Bitcoin, but rather than being on ASICs that are doing useless calculations, you use all the
Uh-huh.
computation to build models and data sets and organize knowledge and make it available to people. It's compute securing a currency. Proof of benefits like proof of work, but the energy is used for social good, which increases trust in the asset. So it's like Bitcoin, but with extra trust. It's a Bitcoin you can tell your grandma about, basically. Everything else is the same. And again, it works now. It wouldn't have worked a year ago under the Biden administration, for example. It's just right now there's a demand for digital assets. And so we're parlaying that into compute for good things.
Very interesting. So if all of this goes well, we might find ourselves in a world of abundance. You've talked a little bit about this abundance trap. Can you walk us through that, what that means, and what we should be careful of here?
Yeah, I mean, it's the fact that this intelligence is available to everyone and it's overwhelming because human intelligence, you only get so smart, but compute intelligence can just go like that, right? So this metabolic rift appears because AIs don't need to eat or sleep or, buy Netflix, etc. So that's why we need to think about how does value flow in an economy where first AIs and then robots dominate physical and intellectual labor. What does it mean to be human? And it's things like giving a damn. AIs in the Nassim Taleb sense are intellectuals, yet idiots. They don't care about you or what you do. If you leverage AI and you care about your company or you care about your family or you care about a problem, that's the big benefit right now that will probably extend. So we need to figure out how to close that rift. And again, one of the proposals we have is universal basic income. We call them culture credits for the users of universal AI, national champions running it, etc. But it's a really hard problem to solve, especially when you're using the old economics, which is why we're proposing a new economics that doesn't require the whole human side of things in terms of utility functions, behavioral economics, nudges, etc.
Yeah, so what can individuals like Matt and myself and others
And
watching,
our kids as well.
yeah, what can they be doing to prepare for this inevitable future? Or maybe it's
Well,
not
I think
inevitable, potential future.
well, I think it's an odd choice. Do we build AIs to replace humans or increase their agency, right? And are we building the right types of AIs? So the book's free, or it's 99 cents on Amazon. It's a proposal for a new thing, and there are some practices of like how you should balance yourself, looking at your material intelligence, network, and diversity. But I think the key thing is, again, caring and giving a damn and realizing that's what it means to be human. That's kind of in the last chapter we talk about computation versus consciousness. Your value is your network. Your value is the people that you know and the value you bring to them. It's walking with your kids and other things. And applying this technology that is very computationally based to things you care about, you can achieve way more than you could ever achieve before. But how we help people as they change their identity from their jobs and the structure around that to this new world, that's again a discussion we all need to have, and we need to have the right frameworks for it. So this is our little proposal to get things going.
But what about something more tangible? What skills should kids in elementary school, middle school, high school be learning right now?
I think everyone should
How do
be
you
vibe
teach giving
coding
it?
for
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
well, so I think everyone should be vibe coding for an hour a day, right? Like you'll just build brand new things. If you look at how Alpha School operates, like 2 hours a day, they're getting up to not 1.5% in the population. It is by having things that are really interesting and they really care about the problem and then applying these tools to the problem effectively. So once you get into that vibe coding creation mindset and you're practicing that muscle, you become more agentic rather than being very passive, which is what our current schooling system, etc., teaches us. And so you need to find the things that you care about and then apply this technology like a battering ram, but again, in exercising like a muscle. Otherwise, you won't get in the right mindset because you've been told that you are the machine and you are the cog, not that you can actually do anything. That's what we found wonderful about Stable Diffusion when there was $300 million. People like creating all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Too much spaghetti, too much other things, but
Always.
yeah.
Imad, I want to thank you for coming on. If check out his book, The Last Economy. You can find it for free. TheLastEconomy.com, 99 cents on Amazon. Go download it. Go read about his vision for the future of the economy. Imad, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. And please send me your best ideas because we all need to figure it out together.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Anything else you want to share? Where to find you? Where to look for your work besides just the book?
Yeah, you can ii.inc. We're about to release open source the best agents out there for free. And then at eMostak is my Twitter.
Okay,
We're
amazing.
going to drop all that in the chat.
Thank you for the time. We'll see you around.
Thanks, Imad.
That was a great lineup of guests.
Yeah,
Pretty
absolutely.
inspiring.
Org Networks says Alex loves spaghetti, and he's so right.
Yeah. And he's right. More spaghetti. Just whenever we can add it.
That really is the solution to everything, isn't it? All right, so that's our show, Nick. I like to thank our guests. We had Mike Maples, founding partner at Floodgate. Go check him out. Ahmad El-Kishki, AI researcher at OpenAI. Obviously, go use OpenAI models. And Imad Mustak, founder of Intelligent Internet. Go check out his new book, The Last Economy, lasteconomy.com, or on Amazon. And check out our newsletter, forwardfuture.ai. That's forwardfuture.ai. Stay up to date, learn the most about AI. That is where to do it. So thanks to everybody who joined us today. Thank you again, Nick. This has been awesome.
Absolutely.
See you next time.
Bye.